Fedor von Bock endured everything history could throw at him. He lived through the First World War. He witnessed the invasion of Poland. He saw France collapse. He endured the grueling Eastern Front. He survived the brutal push toward Moscow. Twice he faced Hitler's wrath and was dismissed, yet returned to service both times. He persisted through nearly every battle of the war, from the opening salvo to the final desperate months. And then, on the 4th of May, 1945, just 4 days before Germany's surrender, a British bomber struck a road in northern Germany. In that instant, Fedor von Bock, one of the most seasoned and formidable commanders of the Wehrmacht, was killed beside the wreckage of a vehicle. Only 4 more days could have granted him the war's end, but they were not given. This is the story of his life. Born on the 3rd of December, 1880, in Kustran, a fortified town in the Kingdom of Prussia, von Bock came from the very lineage that molded Prussian military tradition. Generations of officers shaped his family, his father a general, his grandfather an officer. Serving Prussia and later Germany was not merely a choice for the von Bocks, it was a legacy etched in blood and expectation. From childhood, he was enrolled in the Prussian Military Academy and his path was set. As a young man, he resolved everything about his future. He would be a soldier, and he would excel at it. Von Bock served as both a staff officer and frontline commander during the First World War, demonstrating courage that earned him the Pour le Mérite, the Imperial German Army's highest decoration, famously known as the Blue Max. This honor was reserved for exceptional bravery and leadership under fire, and von Bock truly earned it. Returning home in 1918, he confronted a defeated Germany, the humiliation of Versailles, and the collapse of the empire that had defined his very identity. Yet he remained in the military, navigating the restricted Reichswehr permitted by Versailles. He trained, he waited, quietly preparing for the storm to come. When Hitler rose to power in 1933, rebuilding the German military, von Bock's experience positioned him among the nation's elite officers. He never joined the Nazi Party. A professional soldier of the old Prussian school, he found Hitler personally distasteful, sharing the skepticism of many aristocratic colleagues. Service, however, was inevitable. Resignation was unthinkable. Duty demanded that he wear the uniform and perform his role, and he did so with unmatched skill. In September 1939, Germany invaded Poland, and von Bock commanded Army Group North, one of 2 massive armored forces that swept through Polish defenses in just 5 weeks. His coordination of troops and machinery across hundreds of kilometers drew immediate admiration from his superiors. Poland fell swiftly, and von Bock's attention turned to France. In May 1940, as commander of Army Group B, he led the force that advanced through Belgium and the Netherlands, diverting Allied attention while the main assault struck through the Ardennes further south. His army's breakthrough drove back the British Expeditionary Force and French armies, contributing decisively to one of the swiftest victories in modern military history. France surrendered in 6 weeks. Following this triumph, von Bock was promoted to Field Marshal on the 19th of July, 1940, among 12 others celebrated in Hitler's grand commemoration. Yet it is crucial to understand, von Bock was not merely a soldier executing orders without thought. Von Bock was a commander defined by ambition and audacity. He drove his units relentlessly, pursuing victory with an intensity that came from within. His soldiers called him Derber, a title meaning roughly the one who courts death, a reflection of his readiness to place himself in peril and to demand the same courage from those under his command. He was far from a detached overseer of military operations. He was a man consumed by the desire to win, pushing both himself and everyone around him toward success with unyielding force. Then came the Eastern Front and Operation Barbarossa. On the 22nd of June, 1941, the largest military operation in history commenced. Von Bock assumed leadership of Army Group Center, the most formidable of the 3 German army groups invading the Soviet Union. His force formed the Central Axis, aimed directly at Moscow, the Soviet state's heart. If any army group was to deliver the crushing blow that could topple the Soviet Union, it was to be his. The first months unfolded with astonishing speed and violence. Army Group Center surged into Soviet territory, moving at a pace that seemed to confirm all German assumptions about Soviet frailty. Enormous Soviet formations were encircled and annihilated in battles of encirclement, the largest ever witnessed in military history. At Minsk and later Smolensk, hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops were captured, staggering in number. Despite losses that would have shattered any other army, the Soviet Union continued to fight. It is essential to confront the truth. The advance of Army Group Center was not only a military operation. Behind von Bock's forces trailed the Einsatzgruppen, mobile death squads that executed Jewish civilians, Soviet commissars, and anyone labeled an enemy of the Reich. The territory secured by Army Group Center became the stage for some of the Holocaust's most horrific massacres. Von Bock was aware of the Einsatzgruppen's actions. Every senior commander on the Eastern Front knew, yet like nearly all others, he did not formally protest. He turned his attention to maps and operational goals. By doing so, he became a participant in the system, whether actively or by neglect. By October 1941, Army Group Center had reached the outskirts of Moscow. Operation Typhoon, the final push toward the Soviet capital, was underway. German troops advanced close enough to glimpse the Kremlin spires on clear days. For a moment, Stalin considered relocating the government, partially moving it eastward. It appeared, briefly and terrifyingly, that Moscow might fall, but it did not. The German advance stalled in the autumn Rasputitsa, the season when Russian rains and thaw transformed roads into impassable mud. Then winter arrived, fierce and merciless, catching the German forces unprepared. Soldiers, still in summer uniforms and promised to return home before snow fell, suffered frostbite, while Soviet troops, equipped for winter, launched massive counterattacks. Army Group Center was forced back from Moscow in the brutal fighting of December 1941 and January 1942. The prospect of a rapid victory in the east was gone. Von Bock argued with Hitler over tactics during this time. Their disagreements were frequent and severe. In December 1941, citing health concerns, von Bock was removed from command of Army Group Center. He was indeed unwell, yet his conflict with Hitler over military strategy had also undermined his position. Nevertheless, his career was not over. In January 1942, he assumed command of Army Group South, taking over from Field Marshal von Reichenau, who had succumbed to a stroke. Von Bock led Army Group South during the initial stage of the massive summer offensive of 1942, the push toward the Caucasus oil fields and along the Volga River. This campaign would ultimately culminate in Stalingrad. He helped plan the operation and oversaw its opening maneuvers, but again clashed with Hitler over strategic decisions. His proposals were repeatedly dismissed by the Führer. In July 1942, von Bock was finally removed from command. He was assigned to the Führer Reserve, a pool of senior officers awaiting new postings. Yet no new command ever arrived. For almost 3 years following, von Bock remained without a military post. One of Germany's most accomplished and decorated field marshals, a commander whose career spanned both world wars, he was left idle while his nation waged the deadliest conflict in its history. He watched, powerless, as campaigns he had once directed unraveled. The Soviet Union, once on the brink of collapse under his armies, struck back with overwhelming force. From the west, the Allies advanced through North Africa, then Sicily, Italy, and finally Normandy. Germany was being crushed on every front, and von Bock observed it all from the sidelines. He was not involved in the July 20th, 1944 plot to assassinate Hitler. He was not a member of any organized resistance. Von Bock remained a professional soldier, faithful to the regime, until he was discarded when his military judgment conflicted with Hitler's will. He spent the final years of the war in a bitter kind of retirement, a man defined by command, yet denied command, watching the nation he had served his whole life collapse around him. By early 1945, the end of the war was unmistakably near. Allied forces were crossing Germany's western borders, while Soviet armies advanced relentlessly from the east. Germany was being carved apart. Von Bock was located in the Schleswig-Holstein region of northern Germany, directly in the path of the British advance. On the 4th of May, 1945, he traveled by car with his wife and stepdaughter along a road near the town of Kielbassan. British aircraft were overhead. A bomb struck the road, destroying the vehicle. Von Bock, his wife, and his stepdaughter were all killed instantly. Only 4 days later, on the 8th of May, 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. The timing defies comprehension. 4 days. A man who had commanded more German troops than almost anyone in the war, who had stood at Moscow's gates, who had played a central role in the machinery of conquest and occupation that facilitated the deaths of millions, died only 4 days before the war's conclusion. 4 days before, he would have faced whatever reckoning awaited senior Wehrmacht officers. Would he have been tried? Possibly. The question of senior command responsibility for war crimes in occupied territories was complex and often contested in post-war tribunals. Some commanders faced justice, many did not. Von Bock might have been among those who escaped prosecution entirely, as numerous colleagues did. The British bomber that killed him made that question permanently unanswerable. Von Bock's story offers a crucial lesson. He was not a committed Nazi ideologue. He was not a true believer. He personally disliked Hitler. He argued with the regime over strategy and was dismissed twice for it. Yet he served faithfully for 6 years, commanding the armies that conquered Poland, overran France, and advanced to Moscow. He commanded in regions where the Einsatzgruppen operated, murdering Jewish civilians behind his lines, and he raised no serious objection. He was a professional soldier who enabled the machinery of Nazi conquest. Without men like von Bock, the regime could not have achieved its crimes. Professional loyalty divorced from moral judgment is not neutrality, it is complicity. To serve is to choose, and to turn a blind eye is also a choice. Fedor von Bock made both of these choices every single day of his military career, and in the end, he died 4 days before he would have been forced to account for them. Even death, it seems, has its own grim sense of timing.